Have you read the Secular Humanist Manifesto?
No.
Well, this is a big problem because if you're talking about secular humanism and you want to debate secular humanism, then you should probably know what actually say. I mean, yeah, I'd like to understand a little bit about your own view, if that's okay, Jared. So
Sure, go right
you
ahead.
say that you are a Satanist, but also a secular humanist. Can you please explain to me how those two things can be married?
Satanism is a non-theistic religion. So I heard something earlier.
So it's not a religion.
At the beginning, it sounded
it's
like
not a religion.
you mentioned the worship of mammon. We don't worship anything. We place ourselves at the center of our universe. We are our own figurative gods.
Why do you call yourself mammon then? If I can just interject, why do you call yourself mammon if you don't worship mammon?
The troll Christians.
I had a career in finance. You were right about him being about the deity, the demon, as far as finance. So I had a career in finance, and I used it as an alias.
But mammon is the antithesis of God. Mammon is the rejection of the righteous path in terms of the Christian doctrine, and it's the submission to basically greed. That is what mammon is.
Well, I already like it, so I mean, you don't have to sell me.
Yeah,
I already like
it. So. Explain that to me. Explain how you marry that with the secular humanist perspective.
Well, my view is
I
going to be
do
a little
want
bit different on
to.
that one.
I'll give you a really quick chance to respond, Jared, because since the question was already asked, I want to give you a chance to answer. But I also do want to make sure that we go back to Christianity or secular humanism per se in terms of their effects for society. So go ahead, Jared.
I think that this is important though, because we're looking at the actual foundation of his worldview in terms of how the Satanism and mammon and secular humanism all merges together. It helps me to understand it.
Well, they don't necessarily merge together. Not every secular humanist is going to agree with everything the way I do. That part is going to differ. So,
gentlemen, I
with
just
what
want to be
James
sure.
is saying, I would just
Hold
keep it on task.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you, Jared, because I do want to give you a chance to. I know that you. Do you feel like you had enough time to respond there? I don't mean to cut you off, Jared.
No, it's fine.
I just don't want this to turn into a debate on the nomenclature. I'll give you guys a little bit, like a couple more minutes to cover this, but then I do want to be sure we go to like the effects on society. So continue with this topic for just a couple more minutes.
Yeah, this is important though, because when you're looking at the idea of Satanism and Levian Satanism and the idea of mammon and what mammon represents versus secular humanism, what you're looking at is greed and lust and self-indulgence on one hand, and then secular humanists, they claim to want the greater good. They claim to want rationality, justice, etc. So I actually need to understand this for the debate moving forward.
Well, Satanists want the exact same thing. We want rationality. We want all that as well. We just don't see greed necessarily as a bad thing. It can be, but greed is what motivates every economy. Keeping up with the Joneses is what inspires people to work harder. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, it can be a problem, absolutely. Lust, that's how the planet, the population grows, and it's frankly fun. As long as it's between consenting adults, who cares?
Do you think that lust is how the planet grows?
Well, through sex, lust leading to sexual intercourse, reproduction.
Well, I mean, if you look at secular societies right now, the lust is at an all-time high. People are having more degenerate sex than ever, but the birth rate's at an all-time low. How does that work?
Which secular societies?
All of them. All of them.
Referring to the entire West, all of the Western societies.
Yes, every one of them.
Replacement rate.
All of them.
That are below. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Are below what?
Replacement rate. So we need a
replacement rate.
Do you know that we're below replacement rate?
I haven't done the research on that.
I'll quickly explain it. So basically, if you want to replace your society, you need to have a birth rate of 2.1 per woman. All of the Western societies at the moment, if you look at United States, you look at United Kingdom, Australia, the Western European countries, etc., they're all below replacement rate. Some of them significantly below replacement rate. However, divorce rate is at an all-time high. Marriage, the institution of marriage is worse than it's ever been. People are having more promiscuous sex than they've ever had. They're more indulgence, more lust, more greed. So it doesn't appear as though that lust is
destroy him.
Human civilization.
End him.
I'm sure the people that you just referred to would disagree. If they're having more positive experiences, what you just did there is basically assumed that it was all bad, and we don't know that.
I just took your claim because your claim was that lust fuels human civilization, and told you that lust is at an all-time high today. People are more lustful than they've ever been. We're having more degenerate sex, more abortion, there's more STDs, there's more children outside of wedlock, and our replacement rate is lower than it has been, and it's declining. So I'm just refuting your claim.
In the younglings.
It doesn't mean it's not fueling it. Just because it's not being successful at replacing itself doesn't mean
that's exactly what it would mean.
Okay. I'm going to disagree with you on that one, but, it could still motivate people. Either way, it really doesn't matter. I don't see quite how that matters as far as the main topic.
So the main topic is, it's actually fundamental to the main topic, because the main topic is what's better for human civilization, right? And your view as a Satanist and as a secular humanist is that that individual autonomy is the most important. But then with Satanism, it's about greed and it's about lust. And that's what the figure of Mammon actually represents, is it represents greed, right? And then you said that lust is good because lust, it spurs on population growth and it helps population to thrive. And then that's obviously not true with the trends that we're seeing at the moment. So if we're talking about civilizational progress, we need to have a civilization. So one of the big problems that we've got at the moment is that these countries in the West are all below replacement rate. So what's your prescription, according to secular humanism or according to Satanism, about how we remedy that problem?
Well, this doesn't even come up in Satanism, so I'm just going to leave that completely out. With secular humanism, my prescription is not necessarily that this is a problem at this point that needs to be fixed. There's people here, there's plenty of people on the planet, there's more people than we've ever had before.
Okay.
I don't think it's even a problem as of yet.
Ooh, this is so bad.
I want to jump back. I didn't say that it does fuel. I said it can fuel. It's a small separation there. Lust can fuel. How can it fuel the repopulation? I mean, if it's leading towards sex, and even one person becomes pregnant, isn't that not? I've
just laid out for you why that's not happening and why we live in a more lustful society. There's more pornography. There's more OnlyFans. There's more children outside of wedlock. There's more promiscuous sex. People are pair bonding far less, but our civilization is in decline. So please tell me.
I just want to make sure I understand. It's not happening. It's not happening.
What's not happening?
Lust is you're saying it's not happening. I'm saying that it is. I'm quite certain that
lust is happening. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Lust is happening. There's a lot more lust in today's society.
And it
doesn't, because we are having a declining birth rate. So the evidence is not in your favor.
Is the birth rate greater than 0?
But you have to have a replacement birth rate of 2.1 to replace your population. Do you understand?
Now we're on a different subject. I said that it's happening.
Oh God! No, what a weak pedant! Oh man!
I'm talking about just having a birth rate.
What a weak, pedantic idiot!
To replace your population, you need to have a 2.1 birth rate per woman, right? We've had this throughout human civilization. I mean, there are examples of where it hasn't happened and it has gone pretty badly. But right now we are below the replacement rate. And if this continues, then our societies will eventually go extinct. That is the natural conclusion of it. So in order to replace your society, in order to have a society at all, you need to have a replacement birth rate. So you said that lust can help with this. Lust is obviously not helping with this because we live in a more lustful society and the birth rates are declining. So what is your prescription as a secular humanist or Satanist?
He doesn't have one.
Sort of little
they never
for how we can remedy this.
Again, I'm saying that it can. You seem to be focusing in on that word. It can help.
How?
It doesn't necessarily. How? Again, I mean, lust motivates people to have sex. Sex leads to having babies.
Okay, so we're seeing more lust today, and we've got.
You seem to be more focused on the birth rate, and I'm not.
Well,
good Lord.
In order to have a civilization, you need to have babies and you need to have your population replaced. So that's why it's kind of important. Otherwise, we don't have a civilization to talk about.
Lust contributes.
Lust contributes.
I feel like we're getting... I'm sorry,
Lust does not contribute. Lust contributes to degeneracy. And like I said, it creates more abortions. It creates more sex outside of wedlock. It's worse for pair bonding. There's many studies that show that people who have more sexual partners will have less successful marriage. It breaks down the family institution. So what's actually your counter to that? Because you're just saying it helps because it helps. How does it help?
I don't think it automatically does the things that you said. I think it's not mutually exclusive. I think it can do both. There's plenty of people who are happily married and lustful towards each other. That doesn't mean lust is bad.
I mean, people having sex in marriage is different to like a widespread phenomenon of like lust and greed and degeneracy in society, right?
Would you consider married couples that were lustful towards each other a form of lust, or are you excluding that? I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
You can look at your wife's ass and want to just slap it, you know, in a lustful way.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think it's,
but lust is much bigger than that, right?
Oh, it is. That's my point. It is much bigger than that. So I don't see how we can say that it is a blanket statement that it's not helping. That would imply that there's absolutely nothing. There's no lustful activity that leads to any type of reproduction. Now, it might not lead to enough, but that's different.
Right. So, I mean, I kind of get what you're saying here. You're saying that if somebody in the sanctity of marriage, in the marital institution, they're lustful towards each other, they're going to put penis in vagina and they're going to make baby. I understand that. And I think that it's okay to find your wife sexy and to want to have sex with her. However, if you look at lust and greed, because before you said, I'm sold on that, you know, lust, greed, fantastic. If you look at that on a societal level as what should govern people's lives, the ability, the desire to want to just fulfill your own sort of internal void of lust and greed, then how does that help anything on the societal level? Like what does that actually achieve, and why is that good?
Seems like there's a bit to unpack there. So how is lust and greed good? It's a tool. Tools can be used in multiple different ways. You could use these for absolutely horrible and atrocious things. You can also use them as inspiration. It's really up to the individual. So if a person sees somebody down the road
right now,
a much better car, and they're jealous.
Right now, I would bring up something horrible and ask him how that was useful if it was just a tool.
And the same if someone wants to be lustful and go after one sexual partner or multiple or whatever.
Yeah, it's live, you idiot.
Wrong with that, as long as everyone's consenting.
That's why it says.
Of course, I should say. So
right, okay. Look, so you would say you'd call yourself a secular humanist. Would you prescribe which manifesto would you prescribe yourself to?
I actually don't. I don't necessarily prescribe myself. Secular humanism isn't what I would put at the top of my list as far as things that identify with me. I just think.
Then what are you defending?
A more defendable position than any theism. Really, any.
So we need to get some definition of that. What do you think secular humanism is?
Secular humanism. We're talking about humanistic focus. Obviously secular, not having any type of connection with any religion, focusing on human needs as opposed to spiritual or anything of that nature.
Have you read the Secular Humanist Manifesto?
No.
Well, this is a big problem. Because if you're talking about secular humanism, and you want to debate secular humanism, then you should probably know what actually say. I mean, secular humanism has 3 manifestos, and the manifestos all aggregate themselves. So you've got like an actual doctrine of secular humanism. If you don't know that, then we actually can't really dive into secular humanist prescriptions from your view. You're just sort of making it up as you go, so it's arbitrary.